Hello. Today I would like to talk to you about the simple past tense. So let's have a look. This is an example of a text I might receive from my students. Last week I go to Montreal to visited my aunt. We ate it at a restaurant, but I didn't liked my food. I did be happy to see her. So there are some errors. Let's see if I can fix those. Last week I went to Montreal to visit my aunt. We ate at a restaurant, but I didn't like my food. I was happy to see her. So today I'll explain to you how to fix those errors. There are two forms of the simple past. We have regular, where you add ed to your verb, and it does not matter what your subject is. Or we have irregular, where you don't add ed, and again, it does not matter what your subject is. But you have to learn these forms. So we'll look at how to make them negative in each structure. In fact, it's the same thing. And how to make questions. Again, it's the same thing. So the form for regular verbs is just to add ed to a regular verb in the affirmative. Worked, I worked, he worked, etc. To make it negative, I take the ed from my verb and I turn that into my auxiliary. I didn't, so did is the past of do. I didn't, and then work. I can't repeat my ed here because it's already gone here. So this is my auxiliary, this is my verb. Or in a question, where did you work? I take the ed, it becomes my auxiliary. Where did you work? No ed here. Same thing, they studied. I take the ed, I bring it down to my auxiliary. I make my auxiliary past and not my verb. For irregular verbs, most of them you follow the exact same structure. Of course, the exception is the verb to be, because it's an exception to everything. So be has two different structures for the simple past, was and were. I use was with I, he, she, and it, and I use were for you, we, and they. And to make them negative, I just add not to my verb. Wasn't or weren't. For all the other verbs in English, you follow the same rule as if your verb is regular or irregular. You make your auxiliary into a negative. I didn't have. Or here I said he went. He didn't go. My verb comes back here to the base form. They saw. They didn't see. So this is kind of a repetition of what I've just said because it's very important and yet hard for people to remember. The negative auxiliary is did. So you conjugate the auxiliary. The main verb goes back to the simple form, and again the exception is the verb to be. So I saw him becomes I didn't see him. See is the main base verb of saw. They ate lunch. They did not or they didn't eat lunch. Again, this verb's in the past, so I make my auxiliary into the past, and my main verb comes back to the base form. She worked last night. She didn't work yesterday morning. So let's have a look at these. I didn't went. Is that correct? No. How do I fix it? I would say I didn't go. He didn't worked. There are two mistakes here. One is spelling and this one. So I would say he didn't go. They not worked. There are two errors. I don't have an auxiliary and my verb is in the wrong structure. So I would say they didn't work. Cynthia worked not. Again, I have no auxiliary at all and my verb is in the correct structure. So I would need to say Cynthia didn't work. And in this one, Chris wasn't there. My auxiliary is almost correct because it's the verb to be. It's my spelling is incorrect. So wasn't is W-A-S-N apostrophe T. This one you need to get rid of. So remember, to make a negative, your auxiliary is did plus not and your verb in the base form, except for the verb to be where your auxiliary and the verb are the same thing. So was not, were not. For making most direct information questions, you follow the same structure as when we make questions in the simple present or present progressive. You need an auxiliary, and your auxiliary for the simple past is did, and your main verb comes back to the simple form. Of course, the exception is the verb to be, but we'll talk about that in a second. So I saw him becomes where did you see him? Did shows that my verb structure my sentence is in the past, but my verb comes back to the main form. They ate lunch. What did they eat for lunch? Again, did shows that my structure is in the past, but eat comes back to the base form. She worked last night. When did she work? This one is an exception because it's with the verb to be. When I use the verb to be, it is both my auxiliary and my verb, unless I'm doing a progressive structure. So why do I use this simple past? Really for one main reason, it designates or it shows a completed action in the past at a specified time, and we often have key words that indicate to us that we need to use the past. Things like ago, last week, last month, etc. Or yesterday. They met each other 3 months ago. She lived in Jasper from 2006 to 2009. It's a completed action at a specified time in the past. I bought a new car last month. The ED pronunciation is important. We'll talk about it more in class, but I just want to show you that there are 3 structures. Your ED can be pronounced as a T, as a D, or as an id. Whoops, I have a cat coming to visit me. So if your verb ends in a P or K or F or S sound or an X, hello, or depending on the verb ending, your pronunciation is going to change. So let's have a look at these verbs together. I'm going to say them, maybe repeat them after me, and then write down what kind of ending it sounds like. Is it a T, a D, or an id? Whoops. He's a very fat cat. So played, helped, worked, washed, continued, needed, thanked, seemed, robbed, picked, laughed, offered, dreamed, finished. So what you have to learn and try to remember, the irregular verbs on pages 138 and 139 of your grammar book, how to make negatives and questions using regular verbs, irregular verbs, and within the irregular verbs, don't forget the verb to be. And that the rule for the simple past is that it's a completed action at a specified time in the past, and you will often have keywords, and in your writing I encourage you to use them. So last week, 2 days ago, yesterday, etc. So if you have any questions, please come to the English Help Center or make an appointment. I've got cat hair on my face. Make an appointment to see me so I can give you a hand. Bye.